Hey there, YouTube. Welcome to Big Mike Beard Wisdom. So today we're going to be looking at the yard a little bit. It's almost April, and there's still quite a good bit of snow. So up here in Minnesota, it's kind of one of those things where you're not able to do things as soon as, say, like the southern states are. So if you're really looking forward to getting the lawn up and running, everything all nice and green, the weather's really going to wreak havoc. But today we're really going to be talking about almost like projects and budgets. So this is right around tax season too. I've done my tax returns, so I have an idea of what I'm getting back. And then besides like obviously a monetary budget for doing projects, you also got to think of time. So cutting down a tree, you could easily do that in a day. And especially if it's one that's not overly big, you can also, have it all kind of trimmed up and then stacked away in a day as well. But if you're going to do a whole bunch of projects, maybe you need to think okay, do I need to take a little bit of time off of work? So do I need like 3 days? So if I'm working on these stumps, sometimes stuff takes longer than you think. And if you're like, look, I need to get the stumps done by this date because I'm going to have the garden built by this date, and then stuff growing in the garden by, maybe once the snow melts in like June. But essentially, there's the time frame to think about too. So how much time do you think it's going to wind up taking you to do stuff, and how much time do you need to get stuff done in order to make it fruitful? So essentially, if I don't have the garden started in a time that we can start growing food, then these stumps really can come out, middle of summer and stuff like that. And also, you don't want to start working on the stumps too early because the ground's going to be super duper frozen and hard to work out. Now, if you've got a tree you're looking to get rid of, depending on if you're going to do it yourself or if you're going to get someone else to do it, it can be either expensive or relatively cheap. So for me, I'm going to do this one myself. It doesn't have too terribly bad of a lean toward the house. And luckily I have rope, but otherwise you would want a little bit of rope. That way you can tie it off somewhere up high and maintain pressure to help pull it away from like whatever you don't want smashed. And then you might need a chainsaw. I already have a chainsaw, so we're good to go there. Now, if you're in a situation where you've got like a big, gigantic tree that could come down and hit someone's fence or a shed or a garage, then in which case you would definitely probably want to get someone professional to do it, especially if it's a gigantic tree. And then another cheap project I'm looking at doing is essentially moving this bush. So this bush, I don't like that it's right by the house. It allows water in. So it's kind of one of those situations where it's like, okay, what can I do in order to help not make a point that water could kind of come in? So by removing this bush and maybe putting it down over there, I'm able to still save the bush because this is actually a pretty interesting bush. It's the only one that I've seen that has the flowers that bring in like hummingbirds in my yard. So it's one that I do want to keep. And then this will be just kind of the same thing. So it'll be shovels and digging it up. So not a lot of money spent there. The dirt to fill it back in will be from the dirt that it winds up digging out. Now for a not so free project, some of the sidewalk is getting a little uneven. So this is going to be one of those situations where I'm going to try and raise them up this year and get them to level out. So I don't know if I'm going to use like a foam expanding stuff in order to try and level them out, or if I'm just going to do it with dirt or sand. In a lot of ways, if you're just going to use dirt or sand, you can kind of do some stuff where it's more or less free to do it. But I haven't quite figured it out yet, because the other thing is as you look at the grass here, you can kind of see that the grass is up kind of high in contrast to the sidewalk. Then over here, I've got this gutter. This gutter flows this way, makes a tremendous icy spot over here. So you can see just how much ice is still left. And that's after busting up a lot of it already out here. That way it's not a slip and fall condition for any mailmen. So it's kind of one of those things where I want to try and get this worked out a little bit And part of that is going to be trying to lower this grass height over here, just because it's so tall compared to the sidewalk. Same thing with this one here. So this area here, it's like this part has sunk way down, and it sunk down quite a while ago, because you can see right here the little, when this sidewalk was redone, that was recast above this one. So what I'm thinking is that I'm going to double check with the city, see if the city fixes those or if that's on the homeowner's responsibility. If the city fixes them, that's going to be great, because then hopefully I don't pay for it. Either via like out of pocket or in some sort of weird tax assessment. But if I can get that kind of leveled out, that would be handy, because then water wouldn't hit there and stop. And then the next issue is, you can see over here just how tall the grass is compared to the sidewalk again. So this is pretty tall. So this entire area here, I want to figure out how I can drop this down. So what I'll have to do is kind of see if I can level out the sidewalk up here a bit, and then figure out depth-wise what the depth difference is between here and like the cement part of the gutter. That way we can kind of figure out, okay, cool, you know, I can drop this down, say 2 inches on this side, and then grade it that way. And it's just a, you know, 3-4 foot section, maybe just 3.5. So it's not that bad. That should be something that I can do with shovels. And also for me, I kind of like the idea of putting in an extension to this sidewalk straight forward. So in this area, putting some sort of pathing, be it pavers or be it, you know, a simple poured concrete path. So that way, anyone dropping off packages or visiting the house, it's a quick way in and out. These tree stumps here, that one back there, and that one back there have been here for quite a while. So those are all good and pretty much dead. So I'm hoping those should be relatively simple to take out. I kind of like how they left them at least a little bit tall. That way when you're trying to clear them out, so as opposed to stump grinding, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and cut them down. So I'll dig them out a little bit, cut down below the surface, and then actually take them out. Then those dead logs will be the bottom part of a couple gardens that we're going to do. So we're going to do some raised beds and hugelkultur, which is where you have like decayed wood and stuff like that down the bottom, to help kind of get things to hold a little bit more water and to help return nutrients to the bed as the wood breaks down. It does bring us to this big giant tree stump. And this, I have no idea what kind of tree it was. They look like it fell down or was cut down probably 3 years before we bought the property. And then last winter, a woodpecker bored a hole in there. And then sometime last summer, this area down here popped out too. So I don't know if they just kept boring holes and then it popped out, or if that's like a drain for their nest kind of thing. And then this one's a brand new one this year. So what I would really like to do is the same hugelkultur idea. So get this cut up and put it at the bottom of some raised beds. That's a tremendous amount of wood. But with the weathering and stuff like that, I'm willing to bet it's probably not like the best kind of wood for doing, you know, any kind of particular kind of projects with. But it should be pretty interesting to go ahead and bury it and let it help a garden grow to be something better. But it is a gigantic stump. So if you've got some yard projects, I would definitely recommend doing a little bit of planning. Kind of set up how much time you want to do everything in, and then kind of set up how much money you think it's going to wind up costing. And also try and forecast a little bit extra. So a little bit extra cash just in case stuff gets a little bit more expensive, so inflation hits and stuff like that, or you have something you wind up needing. So let's say, even though I have a chainsaw, maybe I've got to sharpen the chainsaw blade to cut that tree down. And, you know, even though I've got shovels, maybe I want to pick, or I want to get a better axe or something like that to help cut the roots out of the stumps to help clean them out. So it's just one of those things. Planning kind of helps out a lot. Like maybe planning on shooting a video when there's not a train. So planning it out, having a good idea, and reasonable expectations really kind of helps out for you doing stuff and helps build confidence. Now, if you wind up doing a project and then you want to go in way over budget and way over time, then that kind of feels not so great. And then you're like, maybe we just should have called someone or had someone do it. Whereas if you do it yourself and you planned it out a little bit and you hit right around budget, you know you're pretty good. Like when we did the repainting of the decks, that took way longer than I thought, but we also did it for cheaper than I thought we'd be able to do it for. So the repainting of the decks felt pretty good. Now, granted, there's going to be a video later on with how the decks turned out through the winter, because some of it came out all right, some of it, maybe we would have done it differently. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll check you next time.